Hi there. I came on today to talk about vibrational healing. Can you hear me? Nobody's here yet. Vibrational healing, and to a certain extent about timelines. I had an experience recently, bad experience, but I understand why it happened. It wasn't immediately clear to me, but then it became clear. For those of you who don't know, I was taken to the hospital, and I was there for 10 days. And they said I was in a manic state. You know how sometimes when I'm talking, especially when I'm channeling, my speech gets very nonlinear. I was having a perfectly pleasant day. This was about mid-September. I was having a perfectly pleasant time at home. My daughter called from school. I'll just update you, and then I'll tell you what happened, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you about it. And I'm here with a ball python for a reason today. I don't know how long I may wind up putting him down, and he's here for a little bit. So just to update you, I was home and I had been quite high up, very high up in dimensions. And for those of you who don't know this already, sometimes I have a real tough time staying grounded or getting back into my body. And this was one of the things that I recognized that I was completely out of body for about maybe 4 days. And I was having a great time. I was getting downloads consistently. It was really, really interesting stuff, and I was working the whole time. I was having a really good time. And I wasn't any danger to myself, certainly wasn't any danger to anybody else. But my daughter called from the guidance office. She had gone to school, and she was in the guidance counselor's office, and she said that her mama was disoriented. So they sent somebody over to the house to do what they call a wellness check. And I invited him into the house. And they said that I really was disoriented. They say that it was disoriented. I was very nonlinear, not finishing my sentences. I was talking about the dimensional shift. Anyway, they wound up asking if they could take me in an ambulance to the hospital to have a doctor check me out. And I thought that they were going to let me come right back. So I was like, all right. And so I wound up going in the ambulance to the hospital. And so they were asking me questions, and I was honest. So it's very interesting when two different realities collide, because what they think is abnormal is all a day's work for me. They think if tomato, if I have a vision, there are these things where we're told that we're not supposed to talk about it. But I also think that that's kind of morally wrong. I'm at this place in the ascension process where I think you absolutely should, if it's part of your reality that you're seeing visions and you see, halos, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a migraine headache. You might just be seeing an aura. And some of us do constantly. And it's only considered abnormal because so many of us have been conditioned not to talk about it. Or it's been, we've been told that it's abnormal or something's wrong with us if we see these things. And that's not necessarily true. There are all of these realities wrong word, parallel to multiple dimensions, and they interact constantly. So if you openly talk about it, especially to to a psychiatrist, they think something's wrong with you. So I was there for about a half an hour waiting there. Then they gave me a blanket, and I didn't know why. I was like, I thought I was going right home, but then they wouldn't let me leave. They said that I don't know what they said. Basically, they gave me something, though. They gave me something, and I don't know what it was, but it really screwed me over badly, made me really sick. And I woke up like hours and hours later. It was like the middle of the night, and I was freezing, and I was under a blanket, and I was really shaking very violently. Hello, you're waking up now. Anyway, so I wound up spending 10 days in the psych ward. And I found out why, though, when I came back, because the entire time I was there and I was noticing things. One of the things I was noticing was that number one, they wouldn't allow me. They didn't see, well, I know, they didn't recognize what had actually happened. I was out of body. So I know that when I go out of body, because I've been doing this for decades now, when I go out of body, the things that I need to get back into body, I need animals. I need to stand on the earth. Salt baths would help. Peanut butter would help. Black onyx, jet, black tourmaline. All of these things were prohibited in the psych ward. And for those of you, if you're anything like me and you pick up, energetically, we're so incredibly sensitive to the surroundings. We pick up frequencies from our surroundings, the people, if you've ever gone walking through Walmart, you can make yourself ill if you don't. Some of us barricade ourselves. Not that I go to Walmart that often, but like you have to go into a public place that's like where vibrational hygiene is not really a premium. Those of us who have vibrational sensitivities take precautions. There was a while that I used to go to, I was going to family court for a while, and every single time I went there, I had rocks in my bra, and I had every necklace, known to man, just everything that was like my shungite I had to be on. And I couldn't carry enough rocks, and I was carrying my sage spray and bringing my cards, and it will make you definitely don't look normal, but those of us who are vibrationally really sensitive, we have to take certain precautions because we're like one big, open vibrational field, and we feel absolutely everything. So if you wander through an environment like family court where there's a lot of anger or there's a lot of tension and you feel everything, you feel it from all sources, or the same is true with the psych ward, that probably you've had this experience too. Have you ever touched an object and picked up immediately like a backstory, like if you've walked through a like an antique shop or something? Hey, walk through an antique shop or something, where you pick up a backstory, where you just pick something up and all of a sudden you know something about the owner and their state of mind, or you just pick up a bunch of vibrational frequencies. They don't sage much in the psych ward. It's been a psych ward for a while. So it was an environment in which there's basically, it's not geared toward wellness, we'll put it that way. So while I was there, the first thing I did was, because I value my own wellness, They wouldn't let me out, but they also wouldn't let me get well. So that was the weird thing, because they think, one, they think I'm human. And I did notice, because I read auras and energetic fields, etc. And there were a lot of people in the psych ward that are not human. And they've got their own share of difficulties. But the interesting thing, well, I don't want to get on too much of a tangent, but the interesting thing is that it might be considered crazy if other people couldn't see it too. But if some guy's going and talking to himself, wandering around talking to himself, except he's not talking to himself, because I can see the person he's talking to also. And the doctor might think something is gibberish, but is it really gibberish if other people who are also schizophrenic, I'm not schizophrenic, but if other people can understand that language too? Maybe it's just something that they don't understand. They could learn. So anyway, I was there for a while, and I asked for all sorts of things to be brought in. I asked for my meditation cushion. They told me I wasn't allowed to have that because it might have bed bugs. So nothing fabric. So no animals are allowed. I wasn't allowed to have my daughter visit because she wasn't 18. I wasn't allowed to have, until later on, I wasn't allowed to have my cards, my tarot cards, for some sort of solace or some sort of spirit communication. No animals, no plants. They had half an hour of patio a day, patio time, which is they let you out on a chained balcony with about 4 potted plants. So there's this little potted plant of daisy. So, and one thing of lavender. This is not an environment that's geared toward wellness, but it really, so I wasn't allowed to have peanut butter either, because some people might be allergic to peanut butter. It's fascinating the number of things that they did wrong in terms of how to help people. And I'm not saying, I'm sure there are some people who benefit from medication. But I was thinking, well, I know this happened for a reason. So what was it? What is it? Like, what the fuck am I here for? And I was pretty sure I knew what I was there for, because one of the things I do is I work with Sarah Adams and Maria Therese a lot. And all 3 of us are 48 stranders. I've talked about the 48 strands of DNA. I haven't done a live stream in a long time, but 48 strands of DNA, which is, I don't say that with any degree of superiority at all. It's a strata or a tool. Basically, if you're working at that level, it just means that your job is bigger. So that's the tool that you need. The interesting thing is, when I finally got out, I spoke to Maria Therese, and she was saying that she confirmed basically what I thought, because I didn't speak to her when I was in the hospital, but I spoke to her when I came out, and she said that the day that I went in, which was around September 16th, I think, the day that I went in, she was clearing. She does timeline coding, and she holds space in the quantum field so that new codes can constantly be generated. I'll let her talk to you about that sometime, but somebody has to anchor it in physical reality. So basically, I've done this kind of job before, where I go into situations and I have a physical experience, and because of my background and because of my job, I know what's wrong with it. But somebody has to have the experience on a physical level, so that it's a way of feeding data up into the quantum field so that appropriate corrective measures can be taken. And the entire time I was there, like even before I spoke to her, I was thinking to myself, but you know what's wrong with this? So many things were wrong with it in terms of vibrational harmony, because really I specialize in multidimensional harmonics. And the multidimensional harmonics of that space, the entire system is designed to make it impossible to even get out. There are people in that ward who have been there for years. And they're not allowed out, and they're also not allowed to heal themselves either. And the problem that I had with it was the doctors kept telling me what I could or could not do, but the doctors don't even know. Not only do they not know what was even wrong, they don't even know what I am. They're treating me as though I'm a human. Hi, honey. And we're all transmuting out of that. This is going to be probably a short live stream. I'm going to do another one later. I wanted to talk about vibrational medicine, though, because it is possible, and this is actually where we're going in the future, which is my specialty. It is possible to set up a space, an environment that is so rich with variety that someone who has a very sensitive energetic field can walk through a space and automatically they will gravitate to and or avoid the vibrational frequencies of, objects, things like right now, like the snake is one vibrational frequency. He's more than one, actually. He's a little harmonic in himself. But everything carries, I've got like this wide array. And if you can make an entire environment that is just rich with variety, someone who has an open energetic field that's porous, basically it's porous, right? So like we need certain things, and then there's certain things we want to avoid. But you can restabilize yourself, rebalance yourself naturally by virtue of just selecting your own preferences. It's just like food. We're moving into a time where we're not going to need dietitians to measure our bodies. We're moving into a time where, as long as everything is wholesome, you're just going to gravitate toward what you prefer in that moment, and you're going to have aversions or preferences based on what you need moment to moment. And that's really what I needed to do. Like I wouldn't have had to spend 10 days in the psych ward under these hideous medications that made me so sick. They made me sick like instantly. You just don't do that to a really sensitive energetic field. Don't give them these heavy duty medicines. You can treat yourself with water and objects or appropriate food, but they wouldn't allow me to have anything that I actually needed to get in my body. What happened instead was and I understand how it must appear, because you know how you don't want to touch anything that makes you sick. And so I didn't want to touch the walls, and I didn't want to touch any of the fabrics. I didn't want to touch go near any of the other people in the ward. I didn't want to talk to them. I didn't want to engage in any activities. I don't want to sit down in any of those chairs. And it would be easy to assume that I like had a problem with germs or something, which I'm not saying I love germs, but it had nothing to do with germs at all. It was all about vibrational harmonics, because I know how sensitive my energetic field is. And if I touch something, I'm going to immediately pick up all of this crap, and I don't know how to turn it off. So that's the problem that I was having. One time I went, I may have told this story before, but it was such a strong example. Speaking of Walmart, it's not like I go there very often, but about 2 years ago, I had this experience in Walmart where I went to, I purchased something at the register, and the man was wearing a wrist brace, like he probably had carpal tunnel or something. And he was kind of like, he's a disgusting man. He was kind of gross. But he had this wrist brace, and he handed me back this cash. And when I reached out to take it, his hand just like lightly touched mine. And I still don't know whether I got this impression off the money or the wrist brace or his hand. I don't know what it was, but I know that there was just, we made our hands touched. And I instantly felt like I wanted to violently puke. Like I picked up this huge wave of just disgusting energy, and I gagged, and I couldn't. I took the money and I put it in my purse, and I ran to like get a wipe or something, and I just was dry heaving, and I wound up getting in the car and driving home immediately. And I had planned a whole bunch of errands, and after touching it, I was so sick that I wound up driving home immediately and just stripping off my clothes at the door and running and taking a shower, because it was so disgusting. I don't know what the fuck I picked up off of it, but it was so gross, and it just permeated my whole body. And people, like I picked up jugs of water where I got impressions off the water and stuff like that too. And they also wouldn't let me have like sage spray. They wouldn't let me have sage spray in the hospital. I would have been spraying that thing everywhere, but they wouldn't let me have that either. Anyway, so now I'm home, and I've got this new snake. If any of you want to, he's as of yet unnamed. He came with the name Hercules, but I really don't like that name, so I'd like to rename him. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm delighted to take suggestions. Anyway, this is going to be a short live stream. My daughter just came home. Oh, what was I going to talk about? Yeah, hang on a minute. Because I did make a couple of new diagrams. Here's my new diagram. And I was going to talk about moving up through strata. Because in the lower strata, the lower dimensions, like the third dimension, which is all about physicality, it's a little bit, it moves slower. So, if you think about a fan, where you can see the blades, you can see the fan when it's not moving because it's moving slower. And when it speeds up, it becomes, you can't see it anymore. It becomes like transparent. Is it still there? Yeah. You just can't see it because it's moving faster. It's the same principle as we go up in dimension. The lower dimensions are like the base of the triangle, where it's darker, it's more solid, it's more stable, and people whose consciousness is basically there, if you're really if you're a third dimensional based person, and I'm not saying any I don't need this to come off judgmental. Sometimes it probably does. If that's the level of your consciousness, you're unable to, basically everyone can only ever see what's at their level and lower in dimension. The third and the fourth and the fifth dimension and higher interact constantly. But the third dimensional people, because their own vibrational frequency is low, they can only see the things that match them. If you raise your own vibrational frequency, you can see the fan when it's stopped. You can see the fan when it speeds up because you're going at the same speed. And even when it's at full speed, you can still see it. The third dimensional person will have only a fraction of that visibility. But in truth, it's, these dimensions are there all the time. It's like ghosts exist, but a lot of the time people can't see it. Auras exist, but many people don't have that awareness. It doesn't necessarily mean you're ill if you do see auras, if you do have that awareness. There are people who see higher dimensional beings. There are people who see fairies. I've seen fairies. I don't always see them, but I can see, like there's a fairy nesting ground that I used to visit there almost every single day. What was I going to say about this? So the hallmarks of the, when you move up in strata, your own vibrational frequency, there's the same process of moving into light body also. Your awareness grows, and you can then see the fan or other things that that are moving at a faster and faster rate, because you also are moving at a faster and faster rate. So what happens is in the third dimension, it's very dense. This is like a carbon-based third dimensional life form would be down here. And then as we go up, we get more and more spacious and more spacious, and we wind up, our awareness broadens, our senses expand as well. And so when this happens, it allows other things to permeate. So if you keep going up and up and up, if you keep going up and up and up, you basically become more and more porous. It's not really porous, but do you know what I mean? Hello. You become more, you become less dense. And so it's kind of like more can permeate. And then when you wind up being able to reach like these high, this high strata, you can feel things, you can get a vibrational wave and you will feel it all the way through. Your senses just become much more heightened because it's less about you, and suddenly you can feel everything else, and suddenly you're aware of the connection between you and absolutely every last other living thing. This is one of the things that the third dimensional doctors in the psych ward failed to understand. I didn't necessarily talk to them about it. I was really just interested in getting out. But one of the doctors did say, when you came in, you were talking about a dimensional shift. What can you tell us about that? I said, what do you want to know? It's not up to me. But it's happening to everybody. It's planetary. It's global. Lady. Anyway, I'm glad I'm home. I was going to talk about, hang on a minute. Oh, I was going to talk about photomosaics. Do I want to talk about this now, or do I want to do this later? I did put together these handy dandy diagrams. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that now or later. I feel like I'm going to do that later. All right. I think this is just going to be a short one. I'm going to go say hello to Calico. So I'm open for Ascension coaching sessions if you're interested in getting a private session, because I'm gonna wind up doing more posts about, specifically after I've had this thing for this might be a longer live stream. Hang on a minute. It's maybe a little disorganized, but all right. I'm going to wind up doing some posts about how to address symptoms of ascension, since that's one thing that really became very clear to me while I was there. Well, I was like, well, I know what to do about this and this and this and this and this and this and this. All of these things are wrong and they need to be adjusted. And that's really why I was there. Oh, so I was going to tell you about this. So when I got out, I was talking to Maria Therese, and she said that when, at the same time that I went in, apparently we were working as a team. I started to say this earlier, but then I don't think I finished. She was going through the mental illness strata, and things were being recoded toward making corrections to the system. But somebody had to carry that. Somebody had to have the physical experience and be the body that went through the system to kind of put the receive the data, make all like there's a I'm not explaining this well. There's like a mechanism by which we work in tandem. And when I receive all of this data, it goes up into the quantum field, and the people who are responsible for making, or the beings, I should say, the beings who are responsible for making changes to the timelines, changes to the adjustments to the new system, that's really the way I wanted to say it, so that they anchor into the new reality. We're building a substructure now, but in order to make these corrections, someone has to be in the old one so that we know so that the data goes through. Basically, that's what happened. So that's why I was there. So I'm going to wind up talking, not so much today, but I'm going to wind up talking a little bit about vibrational medicine, and it's all about self-selection, because the body knows how to heal itself. And as long as protocols are out of the way or not put in place to prevent wellness, which is what happened. I really noticed that in the hospital. They're like, you can eat this, it's time to eat now, but you can't eat when you're hungry, or we're going to give you, canned juice, and you have to have this, but you can't have, organic soy milk or something else that you need. They wouldn't allow me to have peanut butter because somebody else might be allergic, but it's going to ground me, and that's what I needed. It's a fascinating system, and I'm not surprised that that so many people stay there forever and are unable to get well, because of course you can't possibly heal yourself if you've got people who are they just don't know anything. They don't know anything about vibrational hygiene. And they kept treating me like I was human. There were a lot of people there who weren't even human. They're humanoid, or they look human, but they've got vibrational fields that are all extraterrestrial. There are some alien species which look human, who will die if you give them a Band-Aid, because they'll go into anaphylactic shock. They can't take that substance. I can't remember where I read that, but I remember I remember hearing that from somebody who said we gave this being a it was some alien from a crashed craft, and they said we gave it a Band-Aid and it died. And I remember thinking, I'm not surprised, because it's the chemicals or the plastics that there are some systems that are just, oh, please don't wrap yourself around there. I hate it when you do that. Oh God, my snake's lodged in the chair. Oh, there's no way. There's no way. You're going to have to get yourself out of here. Oh, come on, buddy. I hate it when this snake gets trapped in the chair. It took us 45 minutes last time to get him out. Nope. Oh, crap. Oh, well. All right. I love you. If you want to book a private session, please do. I'm posting the link on my wall. I would appreciate that. Questions, comments, something. I love you all. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.